Hello, and welcome to Church at Home with Rachel for Monday, the 6th of February. My name is Rachel Parker. My pronouns are she and her. I'm an Anglican priest in the Diocese of Edmonton, Anglican Church of Canada. I serve a parish in Alberta in the Day Springs Parish, Day Spring Ministries, and it's the churches of St. Mary's Edgerton, St. Thomas Wainwright, and St. Saviour's in Vermilion. Welcome. Glad to have you. I, I I've been thinking a lot over the last couple of days about our mental state. And I don't mean like mental health and depression and schizophrenia, things like that. Talked about things like that before. But it's talking about what happens when we're mentally um, whipped around. There's a lot of talk in sports, football, hockey, things like that, about concussion protocols. If someone has a head injury or a body injury that might impact the brain, they have very significant things that they do. They say, you know what, we got to get this athlete into the tent or back into the change room, and we run these tests. We check their eyes and see if they're dilated, pupils are dilated, all those things, and then they make them sit in the dark and ask questions like, who's president? What day is it? What time is it? What happened? And they pay close attention to see if the brain is concussed, if the brain has bumped up against the skull and caused any damage. Well, I kind of wonder. Now, there's probably somebody out there who knows what I'm talking about, and I'm sure that there's a thing. But I got thinking about mental concussions, and the reason why is because some of you know my husband has been sick, and he went back to work full time. He's doing pretty good. His energy level's been not bad. He seems to be coming along. We'll learn soon enough, we hope, from his echocardiogram if he's gained some heart function. Um, but he's been not bad. Physically, he still runs at his steam pretty quick, but he's got a lot more energy than he did before he started on all the pills and stuff. But the last week or so, didn't do a lot of physical stuff, like he just did normal stuff. And his job as a chaplain, there's lots of times he's the boss, he's the base chaplain. So lots of times when he's doing paperwork and going to meetings and he's thinking and using his head, but it's more of a professional administration stuff. And then there's those times when he gets inundated and seems to go in cycles with people stuff, the actual like you're a padre stuff. And he had the duty, which meant he was carrying the duty phone, so the after hours calls were coming to him, and there was a bunch of stuff going on. It just sort of happened that he had a week of a lot of stuff that makes you think differently than filling out a form or sitting in a meeting and saying yes or no, sir. Yeah, we can do that, sir. Like really, the pastoral stuff and the thinking creatively and thinking, how do we solve this problem? How do we help this person? And he really wasn't feeling well late last week. He was really tired, still getting enough sleep. He was sleeping through the night. Like his body looked okay. He didn't look gray. He wasn't retaining water. Physically, he looked like, pretty good considering everything. But mentally, he seemed to be kind of sluggish, like something was going on. And all of a sudden it occurred to me, I wonder if we can get mental concussions. Like, is it a thing where your synapses and everything flying around in your brain have to work too hard, and they simply, like, instead of your brain itself hitting your cranium, like hitting your skull and doing damage, if whatever fires off inside your brain to make things happen, if it ever gets to the point where they're firing off so hard that they actually hurt the brain. Does that sound crazy? It makes sense in my head that somebody could have what I would think of as a mental concussion. I mean, I've been there. I burned out when I was in my second parish. We had to close the church. Things got difficult. We were doing the right thing, but there was a lot of information coming at me all at once. There was a lot of decision making happening. A lot of people who having different ideas about who should make these decisions that all seem to fall the response the consequences anyway seem to fall, and the responsibilities seem to fall on my feet. But there's a lot of pastoral care, a lot of people who are angry, a lot of people who are relieved, a lot of people who are confused. And I was sort of the central place. And by the time we were all done, I was also planning my wedding at the time. And by the time we were done, I was broken. I was burned out. I was fried. I could sleep 24 hours a day and still feel tired. I couldn't make a decision to save my life. I could barely remember that you had to go when you hit a green light. When the light turns green, you're supposed to go. I got some help. I saw a counselor. I got lots of rest. I got lots of ideas. I changed my venue. I became the chaplain at our Huron church camp for the summer. Um, that was a practical thing to make sure I had work, but it was also a really good thing because it brought me peace and it gave me a completely new thing to think about. In a way, it was like going into the concussion tent or the change room. It took my brain, the parts of my brain that were firing off over here about closing my church, and made other parts of my brain work so that that part could rest and recuperate and heal. Just like we do for concussions, for physical brain, like brain concussions. When someone hurts themselves, we make them slow down. We give them certain things they can do and certain things they can't do until their brain, the bruising in their brain, actually heals. So I kind of wonder, is there such a thing as a mental concussion? Like, why not? And the fact is, lots of people, we think about physical concussions, like brain concussions, the traditional kind, and lots of people have them. Lots of kids have them. How many times has a kid fallen off the monkey bars at a school and hit their head, and they just get up and play? Maybe they have a little headache. Some kids, being able to name a headache is different. Think about it. A little child whose inside of their head is aching, who's never had a headache before, how do they explain that to a parent if they even think of it? They're sore. I bumped my head. It's sore. How many times might we have had children in our classrooms or ourselves when we were kids with concussions that went undiagnosed, we didn't recognize? How many times have little hockey players, even before contact hockey, all you have to do is fall down, or then the crack of your head moving if you hit the ice, or even maybe just the movement of your head too fast, could do that as well. There's a reason we make kids wear helmets, but that doesn't stop the action of falling happening. It just stops the impact of the head on the ice. The brain is still hitting the inside of the skull as the skull is inside a cushioned helmet that hits the ice. So there could still be concussions involved. You know, how many kids play football for fun after school? Things happen. How many times have you bent over at the same time as somebody else has bent over to pick up a pen and you bang your heads together when you stand up? Or is it just me? Maybe that's just me. I don't know. I'm a klutz. But we have all kinds of times in life when we could probably go through somebody's life and say, "Oh yeah, you had a concussion." You're telling me how you felt and your symptoms afterward. That's a concussion. And maybe the same thing for a mental concussion. We look back on people's lives. How many people have been so stressed out that they can't think straight? You know, and it doesn't have to be a bad thing. It doesn't have to be like planning a funeral or something, planning a wedding, planning a baby shower, the fact of a baby coming. Um, there's so many things in life that make us think differently or think faster, think harder, think more chaotically than we normally do. Does the fact of thinking, the act of thinking, actually, can it cause physical concussion in our heads? Now, I don't know the first thing about biology, so I am probably the answer is an absolute no. But you know what? Even if it doesn't cause a physical concussion within the brain, I think it could definitely cause a mental concussion, that psychological getting everything just so going so fast that our brain isn't able to hold it any longer. And we need to take a time out. We need to sit in the tent, the dark tent, or the change room for 5 or 10 minutes. We need to take a week off and just not do that thing. Doesn't mean you have to do nothing, but maybe use a different part of your brain. Maybe that's the time where you don't go and deal with people for a little while, but you go and you file papers, or you dig at the garden, or you mow the lawn. But you make another part of your brain work so that the part that's been doing that hard thinking work can take a break. So I imagine I may have just given you a mental concussion with my roundabout way of saying things like this. But I just think when we think about mental health and we think about people working, do we sometimes ignore the fact that there might be people who are not mentally impaired, that they don't have something that's ongoing forever, but maybe they have like a 3 or 4 day, like everything just turned to mush, and we need help. We need to help them acknowledge that, name it, and then deal with it appropriately. Maybe we have to figure out like a psychological equivalent to the concussion protocol. in hockey and football. I don't know. What do you think? What a great way to start the week, eh? Well, it's where my brain's been, so maybe maybe by talking about it, my own mental concussion that might be on its way, maybe will be like, no, we've discussed it. It's okay. We're good to go. Anyway, have a great day. I'll see you again tomorrow for Church at Home with Rachel. God bless.